we've got everyone on Dow. I know what you're saying. 25,000 watch. Forget by Christmas. At the rate we're going, we could do that maybe in another couple of days. A lot of this, as you know, has to do with getting tax cuts through in the Senate and the two sides ironing out their differences. And there really aren't dramatically that many in short order. There's also a separate rumor out there, not necessarily one to be believed, that the House would simply vote on what the Senate came up with, to rubber stamp that, get it to the president's desk pronto. To Republican Study Committee Chair, North Carolina Republican Congressman Mark Walker. Congressman, very good to have you.
Thanks, Neil. Good to be with you.
Would you be open to that, sir? It was a rumor that began circulating earlier today that the House would simply vote on what the Senate came up with.
Not at all. In fact, the Republican Study Committee, we did a survey last week just to make sure we didn't have a single one who supported that. We had 3% were maybe or depends. 97% said absolutely not. We're going to conference, and I'm pretty sure that leadership has confirmed that over and over again.
All right. I guess they're concerned about something potentially breaking down in this process. Rarely does that happen when it gets this far. But you are apart on some of the key issues, like when to get those corporate taxes going or cuts going. The Senate favors waiting until 2019. You and your colleagues prefer 2018. But there's a lot of math built into that and using the money saved in the first year for that for other things. How do you feel about that?
Well, that is one of probably the 5 major areas, but I believe there are 2, I would say, higher category priorities. Number 1 is repeal of the individual mandate, which shouldn't be a problem because that was actually in the Senate bill. That's huge. 79% of the people that have had to pay the penalty make less than $50,000 a year. As we no need to re-argue this, but if it's such a great piece of legislation, then why are Americans continuing to have to be forced to pay this? This is something that we can do. The Senate's done it. The House needs to follow through. The other part of that, the second major issue, is the permanency of these tax rates, the individual tax rates. Those are the 2 areas. One, the Senate has landed. The House needs to come across. I would add 3 minor ones. One that you mentioned already, as well as the death tax, the business rate being pushed back, as well as the business pass-throughs for the small business. Those are 3, I won't say secondary issues, but those top 2 are very crucial. We believe that we can come to conference and get all of it done.
The president had toyed with the idea of a higher corporate rate. And again, I know this is all, horse trading to get something else, maybe a lower marginal rates, maybe something else. I don't know. But what did you think of that?
Yeah, I don't know that we have to do that. Obviously, if the whole context of this piece of legislation is designed about being around being pro-growth, we not only want to lower that business rate as much as we can, but we want to implement it as soon as possible as well.
You know, Congressman, I talked to Kevin Brady, the man who runs the House Ways and Means Committee. We were live this weekend, and we got into that issue of the deduction for state and local taxes, which would go under both the Senate and House plan. I want you to just react to this, Kevin Brady. They say their constituents are going to get hit, and they would likely be a no vote if that remains. What do you think?
Look, we're not done yet. We've been listening very closely to Peter King, Lee Zeldin, but a lot of members from Mimi Walters, the others throughout those high tax states. We want to make sure that their taxpayers keep more of what they earn regardless of where they live. It is harder in states where the state and local governments just brutalize these families and businesses with these high taxes, but we're determined to try to provide that relief. And so stay posted.
What did he mean by that, stay posted?
Well, I think we're still trying to fine-tune some of this. The chairman is correct. And you have to ask this question, Neil. Is it the federal elected officials' responsibility to, in fact, bail out some of these states who've been irresponsible both at their local and state legislatures, running this tax base up, something that's crazy? That's one of the reasons a lot of people are even moving from states like New York and New Jersey.
But why take it out on those? But I understand that, sir, but why take it out on those taxpayers?
I don't think we're taking it out. I think that's why we're trying. At first, the Senate was 0% for any kind of state and local deductions. We've moved it up to 10%. There may be a willingness or an ability to maybe bump it up just a little bit more. Maybe that's what the chairman is referring to. Yet at the same time, and these are good members serving from these states, we have to look collectively at all Americans and hopefully even incentivize some of these state and local taxes to be more responsible with their citizens.
We have certainly seen a lot of corporate activity of late and stock surging, certainly not just of late. buoyed by this tax cut talk and the idea that corporations are going to see a lot lower taxes. Would you be disappointed, Congressman? I raised this with a lot of your colleagues on both ends of the aisle. If those companies use that, at least in the near term, just to buy back stock, just to increase their dividends, not to expand plants, not to necessarily hire more folks, not to necessarily pay more of those folks. What do you think?
Well, I will tell you this. This impacts not just these big corporations, but small businesses. We have an automobile dealership here that's looking to expand once some of these things are removed. Would you be a little disappointed? Maybe, but at the same point, when did it become the government's right to pick the winners and losers, especially dabbling into this private sector industry? That's going back to the individual mandate. When you design federal legislation that forces private citizens to do something with industries that are not connected with the government, that's never been government's role, never part of the Constitution. So we want to make sure that we're not mandating what they do. Now, most of the time, those lowered business rates do increase jobs. Can they put some back in the dividends? Can they put more into the board? I'm sure they can. But ultimately, long-term growth is creating more jobs. We've seen that by some of the local manufacturers. In fact, even in our local area, we've seen that happen. So I don't want to get too close to picking up the Democrat talking point saying it's all going here. Historically, that's not true, but the ultimate point, that's not government's responsibility. We're to give back more money to the individual, to the companies, to be able to spend and invest the way they see fit.
All right, Congressman, we'll watch closely. Thank you very much, Mark Walker of North Carolina. Thank you, sir.